then following that, we are going to be having a canvas of the neighborhood. So everyone who is interested, check out teamad52.com, because then you can have the link to sign up to Canvas and everything. You haven't already downloaded Minivan, so you can all just do your turfs and all that. But yeah, good times should be had by all. And if you have, yes, I'll put it in the chat as well for everyone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now I am happy to introduce our first speaker of the evening, Diana Reyna, who is a former city councilwoman, in case her name sounds familiar. She served for, I believe, 12 years, is that right? 12 years representing Bushwick, Williamsburg, and parts of Queens, though we're IND Brooklyn, but you know, Queens, friendly neighbor over there. And most recently, she served under then Borough President Eric Adams, now Mayor Adams, as Deputy Borough President. So I am going, I think, to just like point you this way so you can speak to folks. And I'm going to make you big. One sec.
I will move out of the way.
Hold on, speaker. Okay. Why don't you, okay, can you unmute yourself so we can see?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me well?
Oh, sorry, my computer's muted. That would be okay, here we go. All right, let's get you positioned here. Can you see the room okay? Can everyone see her? Okay. Awesome.
It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Alyssa, you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
No one would notice anything that's missing unless you point out. I am thrilled to be here with IND. My name is Diana Reyna, running for Lieutenant Governor. As Alyssa had mentioned, I served in the council for 12 years. I am the former Deputy Brooklyn Borough President under Eric Adams. I served for 4 years. The great borough of Brooklyn, representing the interests of 2.6 million people. When I was in the council, I chaired the Small Business Committee, the Rules Committee, and the Public Housing Committee. I championed affordable housing and environmental issues in the district. We are interested in running for Lieutenant Governor because this is a time where I have seen what are elements of crisis all throughout. We see an education crisis, we see an affordability crisis, we see a crime crisis. As the wife of a lieutenant, veteran, 25 years in the police department, mother of 2 young boys, teenage boys that travel to Manhattan every day to public high schools, I can't help but worry, similar to so many mothers and fathers who are parents that are trying to just make sure that they're providing what is a safe environment. This is a time where we need to move forward as a state. Leadership matters. And when we are stuck in our ways with extremist idealism, so far right, so far left, we lose sight of what is important to the people, working on the issues that people are suffering, that people continue to raise, engaging the civic participation of what is the public. It requires leadership. It requires opportunities to be able to demonstrate what is fostering dialogue for greater participation in the political process. We have seen that our party has not, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, but our party has failed us in addressing these issues, even talking about these issues. The opportunities to be able to address what is in Albany, the certain fixes to the bail reform, improving the discovery process, being able to integrate technology so that our DA offices are working hand in hand with law enforcement, the opportunities to be able to address what are vital opportunities of being able to work with our troubled schools, providing integration and prevention services to our students. They spend more time in schools and the same underperforming schools that we've seen, not just in the last 2 to 3 years, but the same school districts for decades. The opportunities to be able to work on improving our schools so that our kids can have a fighting chance to be able to integrate with our skills of the future workforce that's required as we see programs such as the electrification of vehicles. We're going to need more individuals learning the craft of being an electrician, bringing that back into our schools. Not everyone is going to go to college, but one thing's for sure, we're going to need to provide them the skills to be able to graduate with an opportunity to have certification in something. The opportunities to be able to seek what is qualified public officials, the opportunities to be able to manage the state. That requires experience, proven track record, results. And I believe I am the candidate for Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Okay, so hi, it's me again.
Hi.
I'm gonna try to do some Q&A.
Questions?
Yeah, yes, questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Did you already put questions in the chat?
Yeah, and I just want to say people can put questions in the chat as well. I'm just checking the chat here. So Danielle, you'll be on chat, so my face is not all up in that Zoom screen. Okay, let's start with questions. Go ahead.
I love the way you talk about affordable housing. What's your definition? I keep looking at the paper, the city is building affordable housing and says you have to make $85,000 a year to afford the rent. Now, I'd like to know, when do we all live on Park Avenue? This is Brooklyn. You've got the Bronx. You've got Queens. The average income in New York City is $61,000. What do you consider affordable housing?
So these are conversations that have taken place that have at the federal level, as well as the state and city, where unless we see further funding, supporting projects so that they can reduce what is the cost of construction, reduce and streamline what are processes within what is our state agency and city agencies that are responsible for the production of affordable housing. You have projects that were announced 10 years ago that today have still not closed, have not been processed at the city level, which causes what is a 30% increase in costs. Because of inflation, because of inventory, supply chain demand, we're seeing what is the rising cost of construction, which clearly then impacts the affordable housing. The standard of affordable housing is based on a federal guideline. If we were to continue to advocate at the federal level, working with our local municipalities to press upon what is the opportunity of seeing what is community income. And these are conversations that have taken place in the past and will continue to do so. But we also have to make sure that we're streamlined. There was a project that I just read in AM New York, and it's in Williamsburg. And the affordable housing for seniors, the income level is $31,000 for a studio, $1,000 in what is rent, monthly income, monthly rent. A senior who doesn't have pension or who has a pension and Social Security may not qualify or may underqualify. And so we have to align a lot of the agencies and guidelines so that it's responsive to the need of seniors, to the needs of families seeking affordable housing. I have seen the opportunities to be able to address senior housing as an emergency because our growing senior population in the homeless system were seniors. And so that led us into what is a fast track of seeking concentrated senior housing. But we haven't seen what is federal dollars dedicated to what would be the state of New York into its municipalities. Housing that used to be considered 202 housing. I believe that this is the time where we have to go to the federal government and start requesting investment in senior housing, especially because the baby boomer generation, every year we have 10,000 retirees for the next 5 to 10 years. That will be the largest population in the state of New York if they choose to stay in New York, because we have an affordability crisis.
Thank you. Handsome.
Awesome. Yeah. Wait, do you have any? Okay. Go ahead, Seamus. What's your question?
Have you sought or received the endorsement of your former chief of staff, now Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Verdoso?
I have not received the borough president's endorsement.
Has he endorsed in any race? Just curious.
No,
No?
I don't believe so.
Okay, cool. Great. I'm just generally curious. Hi, it's me. If you so IND supported Governor Hochul when we endorsed for the primary for this time around. So just curious if if you both win, how do you envision working with someone who may not have been your running mate?
Well, when I get this question, I actually say, like men in any industry, they put their differences aside, have a cocktail, and call it a day. I believe that Kathy Hochul and I can do the same.
Great. Steve, go ahead.
Do you possibly envision your role, because you have experience as someone who sat in a legislative body, though with the city council, as someone who can be a bridge between the governor and the legislature? Because we've had such difficulty in the past between the governor and the legislature. I think that might be something you'd be interested in, you have the skills to do. Is that something you envision doing?
Absolutely. I think that is where the key to a lot of the tension that we see, the opportunity to be able to, it's no secret, I have many former colleagues in the legislature, so that will help. The opportunities to be able to work together, to understand where the differences lie. But I believe that there are more similarities to the legislature than there are differences. When I heard from Sullivan County, when we went to visit the rural Democratic Convention, one of the issues that they referred to were the opioid fentanyl problem. They have 1 in every 3 people dying of overdose. They've had to train their community on issuing Narcan. The same is true in the Bronx, where the Third Avenue Merchants Association has done the same with their cleaners, the street cleaners, to be able to address what is this crisis of alcohol and substance abuse. These are things that are impacting the public. And when people don't feel safe and we don't have the services that we need to provide so that we can address what are these types of similar problems, then we lose as a state. And so this is very much about bringing people together.
Susanna, make sure to project.
Okay, great. Hi, thanks for your service so far for Brooklyn. Just curious, there's so much different variety of how to approach this role, whether it's ceremonies or advocate or policy honcho. What do you see as your role in this position? And you really highlighted a variety of issues facing New York, which we know are so numerous. Just curious, like, what are your top 3 priorities? We know your mate has a ton of issues, but like, what are the issues that you're going to be focusing on? Thank you.
So I've mentioned, right, fixing bail reform is at the top of the list. The opportunities to work with troubled schools and our affordability crisis that we're experiencing. When it comes to education, I think that's the sweet spot that we can begin to really dissect and inquire. There's an opportunity here to inspect what we expect out of our education system, out of our government. What I've noticed, especially when I was Deputy Brooklyn Borough President, you were able to garner that comparison study of, the two worlds of Brooklyn, South Brooklyn and North Brooklyn. We have, in Brooklyn, there are 5 underperforming districts that have been underperforming since the 60s. And when you start looking at a macro level of where we need to put our resources, it's not spread out. It's very concentrated. We have to triage. We have to give the opportunities to really use data, the opportunities to be able to dig deeper, whether or not regents at the 8th grade level, we have universal 3-year-olds. The expectation now is that students are going to learn at an earlier age what used to be 1st grade material. Now they can learn at the 3-year-old level, which means we should be aging down and aligning our curriculum so that we're able to see the raising of the standards. We have worked with, in the past, with the General Contractors Association, and it is terrible to hear them say they want to support apprentice opportunities in the city of New York. But what they find themselves doing is teaching a pre-apprentice program, because students are graduating high school with barely a 6th grade math skill performance. That is unacceptable, to say the least. And if we don't begin to address these issues as if they're going to fix themselves, we're going to see what is further crisis in our state, further people that are not able to produce in this state, finding themselves in hardship. So we have to do what is a focus on the education, as far as I'm concerned. As Lieutenant Governor, that would be one of the primary goals that I would love to see. And then aside from that, the discovery process. I've been in conversations with special prosecutors, law enforcement, DA offices, community, the opportunities to really understand and bring stakeholders together to the table, both victims and defendants, to be able to understand the clogging of our judicial system. We have a lack of technology integrated so that there's evidence that's placed into what is the scanning or inventory of through technology, using technology platforms to be able to provide a better result out of the discovery process so that no one rots in jail for a longer period of time.
Great, great, so much. All right. Any other questions for Dr. Marina while we have her? No. How about on the Zoom? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much. You've been so patient with your time as we figure all this out.
Thank you. It's great to see everyone.
Likewise. All right. Feel free
Bye-bye.
to you have a busy schedule. Take care.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
All right. Now I'm gonna swing around, go back to speaker mode. Enjoy the trip, everyone. Hope I don't make you dizzy. Okay. All righty. So next up, you guys can still hear me, right? Okay. Awesome. So that was great. Thank you, Diana Reina and her team for organizing. Quick shout out. We have a judge in the room, Judge Answorn. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Susan Quirk, Judge Susan Quirk, as well as Robin Garson. So thanks for zooming in. Great to see you. And we also have some candidates in the room besides Seamus. Oh, well, Devin Robinson was here. I'm sure he'll be back. And David was also here and stepped out. So just a quick hit of our endorsed candidates. But next up, I'm super excited to welcome our featured speaker for the evening from the Chinese American Planning Council, President and CEO Wayne Ho. And just by way of background, I saw that the Chinese American Planning Council was founded in 1965. And there are very few groups that go past our year of 1970. So you outrank us in seniority, which is wonderful. So would love to hear. The organization, of course, not you. All right, come on up. So you'll see it's a little, we got the folks on Zoom,
All right.
folks in the room. Feel free to unmask.
Great.
Take it away.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. How's everyone doing? Good. Thanks for inviting me to come. As Alyssa said, I'm Wayne Ho, and I'm the president and CEO of the Chinese American Planning Council, CPC. So we are the largest Asian American social services nonprofit in the country. We only serve New York City, though. So on a personal note, I am a resident and a voter in the 52nd Assembly District. I should have said that from the beginning to get the clap number for CPC. So we were founded in 1965 during the civil rights movement and immigration reform, starting in New York City's Chinatown, in Manhattan's Chinatown. And we have since grown as the community has grown to Flushing, Queens, Sunset Park, Bensonhurst, Lower East Side. We have grown to have 50 programs in 35 locations throughout 3 of the boroughs, physical locations. However, we do serve residents of New York City in all 51 council districts. So in a normal year, we serve 60,000 New Yorkers. 2/3 are Asian American, mostly Chinese. The other third represents the diversity of New York City. So there are Black, brown, immigrant, and low-income New Yorkers. Last year, because of the pandemic, we served 125,000 New Yorkers. So twice as many New Yorkers. Most of that were the clapping should go to my team. They're the ones on the front line, and they're the essential workers. The 125,000 that we saw were first-time resident, or many first-time residents who come to us because they needed financial assistance. So emergency rental assistance programs, to emergency food delivery. So since the pandemic started, we have given out over 400,000 pounds of food in 3 boroughs. We've handed out over $7.4 million in financial assistance to about 3,000 families throughout the city, including undocumented immigrants who are not eligible for many public benefits. But to put a context to this, that the Asian American community, we are the fastest growing racial group in the city, the state, and the country. In the 2010 census, we were 15% of the city. We are now 18% of the city of New York. We are about 11% of the state of New York. And while there's the growth of the community, many people don't know about the needs in the community because there's what we call the model minority stereotype, that all Asians do well. We go to all the specialized high schools. We all go to the Ivy Leagues, and we get great jobs. But the reality is, research has been done recently through the Robin Hood Foundation, when Mayor Bloomberg started the Center for Economic Opportunity, that Asian Americans actually are the poorest racial group in New York City. 1 out of every 4 Asian American actually struggles with poverty. If you break it down by ethnic group, Chinese, Indian, Filipino, Vietnamese, et cetera, it varies across ethnic groups. There's over 40 Asian American ethnic groups in New York. There's over 100 languages and dialects amongst the Asian American community. So to take it to what's happening now is that the Asian American community, partly because we had a president who was former president who was using terms like Kung flu or China virus, to the fact that the news was really covering, this is started on Wuhan, China back in December 2019, that the Asian American community, especially in the Chinese neighborhoods, were actually hit 2 months before New York went on pause. So in January 2020, Chinatown had over 50% of businesses struggling already, businesses already showing 50% impact, 50% decreases in their revenues. Flushing was about 70% impacts. A lot of it was because during Lunar New Year is when they make their big business in Chinatown restaurants, Chinese restaurants. But folks were canceling galas, canceling dinners, canceling parties. And when restaurants are not operating, that means the dry cleaners are not operating because no one's sending in linens, which then means the printing companies or businesses are not operating because they're not printing menus, they're not printing other things. So there was this ripple effect throughout the Chinatowns 2 months before New York State went on pause. Data that came out in June of 2020 shows that of all racial groups in New York City, Asian Americans had the highest rate of increase for unemployment claims, 6,900% increase in unemployment claims. So we fast forward to now, not to now, but then we jump to fall of 2020 when the city and the state started reopening. We at CPC, we have, amongst all our entities, we're actually 9 entities within the organization: human services, home care, affordable housing, residential services, that we are made up of 5,200 employees. 4,500 of them were deemed essential by the state when New York went on pause. So that meant that 4,500 of my staff were going out in the community, continuing to serve the community during a time when a lot of people were staying home. So fast forward to the fall of 2020, when things are reopening, I had more staff tell me that they were more afraid of catching a fist to their face than they were of catching COVID. So you might have heard a story of a Chinese American woman on Grand Street who had a pipe on her face, to her face. She was the mother of one of our high school student participants. There was many of my staff who were, once again, essential workers. Even before New York went on pause, there were people walking by them, coughing, making comments, saying, I don't want to catch the Wuhan virus at them just because they were at a Starbucks, if they were getting lunch. We've had staff members get spit on, food thrown at them. People come up to them on the subway, even up to last week, come up to them on the subway, yelling at them to their face, making racial slurs. I'm sure you've seen the news. Hate crimes against Asian American New Yorkers have gone up nearly 400% in the last year. Just as of the calendar year 2022, as of May 31st, there's already been about 150 reported hate crimes, hate incidents against Asian Americans. And that's what's reported because a lot of Asian Americans don't want to engage the police, or they might not speak English and have challenges communicating. The Asian American community also has a very complicated relationship with the police. Many who are undocumented are afraid of the police working with ICE, because in the Southeast Asian community or in other communities that do have undocumented immigrants, or in the refugee community, there's been lots of deportations that have happened under both Obama as well as Trump. There's also from the targeting of South Asian communities and Muslim communities during Mayor Bloomberg's tenure of monitoring mosques and other houses of worship. There's a lot of lack of trust in the South Asian community towards NYPD. You might have heard a few years ago in Flushing that a woman who was believed to be a sex worker, police raided her work, and she was trying to escape the police and ended up depending on reports, jumping or falling off fire escape and died in Flushing. So this targeting of unlicensed food vendors to folks who work in massage parlors, sex workers, as well as folks who have domestic violence issues or child abuse in their family and other family violence happening, often have very challenging experiences with the police. So this is all to say police do play a role in public safety, of course, but I think what we've been trying to do with our allies across the Asian American community, as well as other communities of color, is how do we define public safety not as the absence of violence, but the promotion of wellness. And that's where we've been focusing a lot about addressing mental health, which has a lot of cultural stigmas attached to it. There's also a lack of Asian American providers of mental health who speak the language, understand the culture. We also have been doing a lot of work then on what we do with intergenerationally, because the Asian American community has the highest rate of overcrowded housing. So 3-4 families together in tiny apartments, and even non-family members living in the same apartments. So we've been dealing with these issues of how do we keep the community safe? And that was my number one mantra amongst my board and my leadership is how do we continue to serve the community while keeping both staff and community members safe throughout the pandemic, dealing with health issues, economic issues, as well as the anti-Asian hate that has happened. We have been meeting regularly with NYPD, the Mayor's Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes, which started under Mayor de Blasio. We've been meeting with DA's offices and talking through what are some solutions on these issues, because we do believe in restorative justice and transformative justice to solve this. I always like to remind my AAPI peers that just in May, June of 2020, we were marching for Black Lives and we were organizing AAPIs for Black Lives. And then now that there's more fears and anger and concerns in the community, we really need to think back about, is over-policing or mass incarceration the solution to promoting safety? Once again, I believe NYPD plays a role. I don't believe they play the main role in the community. So with that, I have been heartened by the amount of allies we've seen in the Black and Brown communities. I do want to acknowledge Mayor Adams, that when there was the unfortunate murder of Michelle Alyssa Go, who was the woman pushed into the subway a few months ago, that 2 hours after that incident, his office reached out to both legislators and community leaders and had a phone call or a Zoom where we were briefed right away with the police commissioner and others in the mayor's office and the mayor himself about what the knowledge, what the facts were that we knew at that time. How can we stand together as a community, double checking messaging, because obviously it's complicated with views around bail reform, homelessness, mental illness. And then the same thing happened again when Christina Yuna Lee was murdered off Grand Street. Quick note, Christina Yuna Lee lives at 111 Christie Street. One of my daycares, one of my after school programs is right next door at 115 Christie Street. So our phones were ringing off the hook from parents and staff members who were really scared that weekend. So fast forward to now, we've been working across lines along with others. We've been doing trainings to our community members. So everything from self-defense to upstander training with allies like Holla Back and Womankind, where you're not just a bystander, but you can be an upstander, and how do you safely intervene. We've also been doing a lot, once again, know your rights and how to report such incidents. We also were successful in our advocacy, and I noticed, I see that we have some elected officials on here. I see Senator Bernardus is on here, that we were successful, led by Senator John Liu, as well as Assembly Member Zoran Mamdani and Assembly Member Yulin Liu last fiscal year, to get $10 million into the state budget to promote AAPI recovery. Then we were also fortunate in the last city council round to get $4 million to promote AAPI recovery, and it allows us to do a slew of services from mental health to economic recovery to health promotion. This past year, in the fiscal year we just started with the state, it's been doubled to $20 million. And now we're looking to $6 million at the city council level. One quick thing to note, while we are the fastest growing racial group in the city, once again, 18% of the city, 10%, 11% of the state, the Asian American community gets less than 1% of all human services contract dollars from the city of New York, less than 0.25% of all human services contract dollars from the state of New York. And then we'll go to private philanthropy. We get less than 0.25% of all philanthropic dollars to New York City, Asian American community-based organizations. So a lot of this funding is great, but I feel like we're playing catch up in serving the community in a culturally competent, linguistically appropriate, and immigrant accessible way. So one ask that I have of everyone in here is that obviously we're going through the city budget negotiations right now, and that's when all the fun rallies and advocacy starts. We are asking for support to enhance our $4 million AAPI Community Recovery Fund from $4 million to $6 million. If you're interested in signing on to our efforts, I'm going to forward some information to Alyssa after this, and I hope that folks will support the effort, because once again, this is money going to 80 Asian American serving nonprofit organizations who have been in the community for decades and can address the issues. And this goes everyone from Staten Island to the Bronx, across the 40 ethnic groups that I've mentioned. So thank you very much for your time. I'll stop there and I can open it up for if there's time for questions.
Thank you. Is somebody like unmuting to ask a question or
I will.
is that, let's see. No? Okay. Sorry, I heard some feedback
Oh,
before.
sorry.
Just didn't wanna- that was really enlightening. I just want to say, like, I didn't know the disproportionate numbers that you said were so stark in the unemployment figures. Did you say 69,000?
6,900% increase in
Okay, wow,
employment.
that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming to share with us.
Sure.
Do we have any questions on the Zoom?
There was one comment that it was a bit hard to hear you.
Oh, did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Rena just mentioned, speaking of mental health, I just found out about a website to connect people to AAPI mental health professionals. It's asiannhc.org.
Oh.
Do you know about that?
No,
Oh, cool.
no, I do. Thank you, Rena.
Thanks for, drop it in the
Yeah.
chat and we'll make sure to distribute. Perfect. Great, yeah, sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I can only speak to my experience. I work with a large
Okay.
Asian community. And so I want to ask about what you started with, like the model minority
Yeah.
stereotype. So I see a lot of the issues that you've been talking about. It's quite clear that there's a big disparity, but it doesn't show up in the numbers, the
Yep.
demographics, and I'm just wondering if you could speak to them. My hunch is that because we don't disaggregate the
Correct.
data, and there's just such a wide swath, and we consider it an all Asian community, but is that
Right.
what's going on here?
Yes.
Is there a better way, like, do you have suggestions for how? Because when you look at the data, it just doesn't show up.
Right.
So
Right.
all those things.
Right. So I would say there's.
The question.
Oh, sorry. So the question was, you work with an Asian American population in Queens, and the data doesn't really show the needs that I've been sharing. So there's two quick responses I have to that. The first
There's
one,
a few of that all that stuff's happening.
yeah. So the first issue is that all other racial groups are unimodal, single modal. So you have the usual, what's it called,
Yeah.
the distribution.
Bell curve.
The bell curve, thank you. The Asian American community is the only racial group that actually has two. We're a bimodal community. So when you go for its median or mean data, it consolidates it and it makes it like, oh, you have the highest household income out of all racial groups. But if you actually break it down, the Asian American community has the most disparities between our communities. So the biggest disparity of who's poor and who has means, the biggest disparity of who's not educated, who is educated, the biggest disparities between who's housed and who's unhoused. So that's one issue, is that we're a bimodal community. So that's where part of the
Is
data.
there a way of tracking who falls into it? Like, it
There is
movement?
the NYU Center for the Study of Asian American Health, as well as the Asian American Federation, have pretty good reports that actually break it down generally for the Asian American community, as well as by ethnic groups, by they go down to assembly districts, Senate districts, council districts, and congressional districts. They also break it down by language. They break it down by years in the country. The other issue is exactly what you said, is that we need to disaggregate the data. So break it down by Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Indian, Bangladeshi. So we were fortunate. Councilmember Drom got legislation passed years ago in the city to track data on, I believe, 12 or 14 Asian ethnic groups. And then just last year, after 10 years of advocating for it, I've been at 3 jobs since we came up with this bill. Assemblymember Yulene New and Senator Julia Salazar did get a bill passed at the state level, which would disaggregate data that Kathy Hochul did sign after she came in. Governor Cuomo last year actually vetoed the bill. So then when it came back to pass again to have disaggregated data, Governor Hochul did sign it. I want to acknowledge there's a lot of fears in elders in our community that disaggregating data will actually lessen our numbers and make us seem less powerful, when I think there's a misunderstanding that you can still have the Asian writ large data, but then you'll also afterwards have to mandate having ethnic specific data for the community. Of the Asian American community in New York, 40% are Chinese. So we're a pretty big portion. I'm Chinese. We're a pretty big portion of AAPI racial group.
Fascinating. Interesting. Did the governor give you any indication, the old governor, as to why the veto was there?
The official reason or
Inside scoop is what we-
insights?
what we-
Well, let's see. Someone who used to work on the second floor with Cuomo, who left before his third term, once told me that, actually, let me say it this way. I saw him at an event, this a couple years ago, and I said, hey, I have a question for you. Governor Cuomo has never come to Chinatown since he's been in office. Not even ceremonially, just never been in Chinatown. Why is that? And his comment was, Cuomo doesn't get the Asian American community. The only Asian event he's ever been to there was an international Chinese business conference that happened in Albany, and he showed up because someone told him it's for economic development reasons, not for racial justice reasons too. So the only time Cuomo did come to an Asian American neighborhood was when Cynthia Nixon was primarying him. So he did show up to the Lunar New Year parade in Flushing for 10 minutes
Wow,
too, but he has never been to Chinatown.
yeah, definitely on his best behavior when Cynthia was holding his. feet to
Yes,
the fire.
yes.
That is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Jason, did I see your hand up?
Yeah.
Sure, go back to the hate tax.
Yep.
You mentioned Donald Trump as that.
Yep.
That, we all saw that. Are there drivers of that that's continuing? Like, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated, the hate. I think from an awareness perspective, I'm happy that people are saying stop AAPI hate, stop Asian hate. From an awareness perspective, I'm happy that there's news reports about it. I do wonder how much of that perpetuates people's actions once you keep seeing it in the news. It's also something many of us in the Asian community are having discussions, which is not all incidents of violence are racially motivated, even if they're targeting Asian Americans. And we also need to acknowledge it's mostly Asian women or Asian seniors that are being targeted. So it's also a subgroup within the broad Asian category. So our assumption is part of it is Trump, part of it is a lot of the stresses that have happened. A lot of the people who have been doing the attacks do have some mental illness. So that's a contributing factor. Having said that, I think we have to recognize that Asian American violence or anti-Asian American violence is as American as apple pie. I'm going back to 1849, the gold rush, when Chinese were coming to California to work, and the amount of violence that they went through. And the first anti-immigrant law was 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. This year, we're acknowledging it's the 40th anniversary of Vincent Chin getting murdered. Vincent Chin's Chinese American in Detroit who was out on his bachelor party. And that was when the Japanese automobile industry was taking over the American automobile industry. And some Detroit auto workers were out of work, and a father and son killed Vincent Chin, calling him Japanese slurs because they thought he was Japanese. So there's been incidents of violence against Asian Americans throughout history. I think it's also complicated because unfortunately in the news, we just keep seeing stories where it might be a Black or a brown person attacking an Asian American. The national group Stop AAPI Hate has actually collected national data and reports, and 90% of the perpetrators of violence against Asian Americans since the pandemic has started are actually white. But the numbers inverted when you talk about news reports. 90% of news stories that show the perpetrator are Black and brown. So I think that's one of the challenging issues that we face, is how do we continue to not divide our communities? One thing that we've been dealing with at CPC is, there's a proposed homeless shelter in Sunset Park. There's another, and not all shelters are the same. I want to acknowledge that too. And I'm, as a human services person, we obviously need housing and shelters and safe spaces. And there were 3, 2 got paused, but there are 3 coming into Chinatown. The thing that was really sad is that it's empowering for me to see more Asian Americans out on the streets and lobbying, because for a while there it was just me, and I know Senator Hoylman was tired of seeing me and my staff and not other Asian American faces. But what ended up happening was, because of these fears, we had Chinatown leaders out there on the streets with signs that I found very anti-Black, anti-brown, anti-poor, anti-homeless. And even if I think there's legitimate conversations about equitable siting of shelters, security, wraparound services, the investments of what's happening in a shelter, I will never stand with someone, and my organization will not stand with any protesters, even if they're longtime Chinatown leaders and allies who are using anti-brown, anti-black, and anti-poor language. This is not being recorded, right? There's enough like angry Chinatown elders about statements that I've made too.
Senator Bernardes did have a question.
Oh.
You want to make sure that this is the main meeting of the Wayne Ho Appreciation Society.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Senator Bernardes. By the way, I think the redistricting, he's also going to be my senator now, right? With 20, how that, we'll see what happens because I keep jumping senators. I've learned where I live.
Yeah,
Over
right, you're
there,
on the
too.
west side of the district, yeah.
Yeah, on the west side. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll figure it out.
You'll figure out tomorrow. We'll all know tomorrow, and there'll be another lawsuit or something.
Any other questions?
Sure.
I've heard you speak about this before, but it's so complicated. I was wondering if you could just say something about the clashes with Ron Kim. 'Cause I'm struggling to understand.
Sure.
And I know that you have a defense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Reminder to
if you
repeat the
could-
question.
yeah.
Thanks.
I was going to first say I want to acknowledge Senator Hoylman and Senator Bernardes, who, while there's been a growth in Asian American elected officials in the city and the state, which is great, except for the city and state Asian Power 100, I keep dropping because it keeps continues to be more. I went from 14 to 17 to 22, and I was like, come on. I know. Yeah, but you know, the 1,000 people who read city and state are the 1,000 people who care about their numbers. So the question was about a report that Ron Kim, Assemblymember Ron Kim, has written about Chinese American Planning Council, which also mentions 1199 SEIU, around saying that we're exploiting and doing wage theft against home care workers. So I'm going to apologize now to the senators in the room because they've heard this spiel before. So New York State has 187,000 home care clients who are served by 330,000 home care workers. Of the 187,000 home care clients who might get 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day of services, 11,000, so what is that, less than 10%, get what's known as 24-hour care. So 24-hour care is then served, the 11,000 clients are served by 33,000 home care workers. So every one of those 24-hour clients have 2 to 3 workers working with them. According to State Department of Labor, State Department of Health, State Court of Appeals decisions, Medicaid rules, contractual agreements with Human Resources Administration and managed care organizations, and union agreements with 1199, because they're all union workers, unionized workers. Home care workers who have 24-hour shifts are only paid 13 hours. That's known as the 13-hour rule. With the understanding, which wasn't defined until 2019 by the Court of Appeals, that with the understanding that your other 11 hours, you get 8 hours of sleep time, of which 5 is uninterrupted, and you get 3 one-hour meal breaks. If you have an interruption during those 11 hours, you get compensated for that block. So if you work for 1 minute during your 1 hour lunch break or meal break, you get compensated for that 1 hour. If you do get interrupted during your 5 hours, you get that. So what happened is in 2015, 140 lawsuits were filed against 42 nonprofit home care agencies, 2 against CPC. If my lawyer were here, former council member Alan Gerson, who's my general counsel, if he were here, he'd remind me it's Chinese American Planning Council Home Attendant Program, Inc., a separate organization. 2 lawsuits out of the 140 were filed against CPC, saying wage theft because they had 24-hour shifts, but they weren't compensated for the 11 hours. So what our response has been is that the state of New York determines reimbursement rates, determines the hours. They've codified the 13-hour rule. So we as a home care agency have, oh, and to be one thing we're really clear on, we only get reimbursed for those 13 hours of a 24-hour shift. If there's an interruption during the 11 hours, we find our own funding to pay that amount for the worker. So we as CPC, I have 3,000, we have 3,000 home care clients. 49 are 24-hour cases. So we have 49 out of 11,000 24-hour cases. Every home care agency in the state of New York is required to provide services that are authorized by either the local agency, here it's HRA, or managed care organizations. I don't have any say whatsoever on whether it's 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day, or 24 hours a day of care. Like, that's not my call. What has happened then is, when I first started at CPC 5+ years ago, we've been advocating to change the 13-hour rule to pay for those other 11 hours. So we weren't as public about it because there are these lawsuits, and we obviously have to be careful during lawsuits. This was recently settled a month ago through an arbitrator's decision through 1199. So since everyone's unionized, 1199 made the choice to bring everyone together into the grievance process. It started with mediation a couple of years ago, and then mediation didn't work. It became arbitration. So an arbitrator decided a month ago that for 100,000 unionized home care workers going back to 2008, that for 42 nonprofit home care agencies, some agencies unintentionally were not in full compliance with 6 different wage laws, not just 24 hours. There's like these complicated wage rules. Some were in full compliance, but out of A, making sure workers get paid fairly and quickly, B, not jamming up the court system, C, making sure that lawyers don't take their legal fees off the settlement, and D, to make sure that services are continued in home care. The arbitrator decided that each home care agency must toss into this wage pot of $30 million, $250 per worker into this pot. So CPC, we've had 5,100 workers since 2008. So we're tossing in $1.3 million into this $30 million pot. That's our pay in. The pay out is a complicated methodology that the arbitrator decided, where 20 workers with 24-hour cases will get 60% of the pot, and then the rest of the workers, 100,000 workers who don't have 24-hour cases, will get the other 40% of the pot too. So that was the settlement. That's the long explanation. The short explanation is we follow the rules. The rules are not fair. That's why we've been advocating to change the rules. 2 more quick points is, there is what's known as split shift. So a 24-hour case based on a nursing assessment, that's an independent nurse that HRA or the managed care plan send out. They can recommend that a patient with 24-hour cases or shifts have so many needs that it has to be split into two 12-hour split shifts. We don't have a say in that. We can advocate for it and appeal for it, but it's the nurse and the HRA or the managed care organizations that decide it. So they can do split shifts, and then it will pay for 2 12-hour workers. So our stance has been, whether or not it's split shifts or 24-hour cases, to pay for that 11 hours, folks should be compensated. It's better for the worker, better for the patient. The cost to the state of New York for 11,000 patients to get that 11 hours paid will be $1.1 billion in Medicaid. To put that in context, the fair pay for home care that we're all fighting for, the 50% increase for home care workers, which once again is 330,000 home care workers, would cost about $3 billion. So I don't know what happens in negotiations, but I think that's one of the things that always comes up is $1.1 billion for 11,000 cases, and then $3 billion to raise wages 50% for all home care workers. The other worry about mandating split shifts is that there's right now a 17% worker shortage in home care. So if the state mandates split shift and we don't have enough workers, that means that home care clients could be institutionalized into nursing homes, because that's what the law says. So that's home care in a nutshell. Sorry to the senators for hearing the spiel for the 80th time.
That's so
A bit.
cool. That was like a 101 course.
I know.
It's
I know.
go pretty deep.
You could tell, I was trying to explain it with passion, but it's hard after like 1 year of explaining
Yeah. No
this
worries.
issue. But I don't know if I answered the question or got to the core of it.
Well, I just am trying to understand if you're in conflict with the workers, or if you're working to change, because I know that you're the ones that you're adhering to the law.
Yep.
But you're also trying to change and support the healthcare workers.
Right.
Trying to change, including the split shift.
We've been trying to push for split shifts. Just give you an example. For 3 years, we've been advocating for this one case to go from 24 hours to split shift. We just got the split shift authorization from the managed care plan. Then the family caregiver, the responsible family member of that client, said no because it's COVID and I don't want another body come into my house. So these are the realities we're dealing with. Short answer is we're trying to do right by the workers. We respect the union process. That's why we've been going through it. We've been very vocal. We've been testifying at hearings, meeting with the second floor, meeting with Senate and Assembly for the 5+ years I've been at CPC about changing it. If we had the means to pay our workers on top of the 13 hours, we would do it, but that's not a sustainable. I mean, you can do the math. Time and a half times 11 hours times number of cases times 365 days a year.
Well, it's confusing, like Ron can't, you know, wage that. So that's why I wanted to. Thank you.
Here's what I will say. I've known Ron for 15+ years. I was surprised that the first time I hear about a report is New Year's Eve when I was out celebrating with my friends, and I get a call from a reporter asking me for an opinion on a report that's been embargoed and asking me for a quote, which I couldn't give a quote. I will also say the folks who encouraged those 2 workers to file lawsuits against us, because they're not the same organizers who are behind the other 138 lawsuits, but the 2 against CPC. For 40 years, they have been trying to undermine CPC. So I encourage folks to look into the history of Chinatown protests. They're the same folks who've been protesting a lot of Chinatown institutions in the last year. The last thing I'll say is, how to say this? CPC always centers the community. So regardless of what Ron has said on Twitter or through a report, we continue to respond to constituent services, including any personal family service needs that might exist for Mr. Kim.
That's not perfect.
Y'all smart enough to figure out what I just said.
Yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
exactly.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Ho?
Mr. Ho, Wayne, that's weird.
I don't know. President done it before.
I know.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
This was really enlightening.
Great, thank you. Nice meeting everybody. Thanks, Andrew.
Cool. All right. And, just broad statement, consider IND an ally to the CPC. And if you need us for anything, we're, you know where to find us. And you can join IND, you're in the district.
For now, I'll check out your Oreo.
Okay, please.
See my family.
Awesome.
Good night.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
everybody.
Thanks again. Okay, that was really great. I learned a whole lot. That was really enlightening, and appreciate his time. Okay, so our next featured speaker is on her way. She said her ETA is 8:13, so just running a few minutes behind. But in the meantime, since we have Senator Gounardis here on Zoom, if you're able to, where'd you go? There you are. Hey, so we're doing this new thing where you're going to be the speaker up here. Follow me.
Wow.
Okay, if you want to give a little Albany update, tell us what's going on. Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. And I'm glad that this is the monthly Wayne Ho Appreciation Society meeting. I've worked very closely with CPC. I can vouch entirely for what they do in the community. In fact, they just did a big food distribution with the Met Council earlier this week. And so it was a great way of seeing 2 phenomenal organizations partner together. And the theme of the food distribution was about combating Asian hate. So, a lot of respect for CPC. I'll keep this very brief, mostly because I'm on babysitting duty and it's time for bath time in a few minutes. But I just want to pop in and say hello. We are rapidly nearing the end of the legislative session. I see Brad there in the corner on my left. Hey, Brad. Brad got some really good news today about one of his priority bills moving in the Assembly, which is the Adult Survivors Act, which is phenomenal. So he's been trying to push that over. He's pushed that over the Senate easily, and now we're waiting for the Assembly to just get it done. So kudos to Brad for that. On my end, we have like 4 or 5 days left. Ken, how many days we have left? Like 4 days left? 5 days?
6 days.
6 days left. So my big priority is going to be to renew the speed cameras. The speed cameras go dark on July 1. As I see Danielle kind of looking at me saying, yes, they do. Like, where are we? We are, I'm happy to say that we have reached an agreement with the Assembly and the Senate to, or at least it's right now, it's an agreement. It's not done till it's voted on, to extend the speed camera program for an additional 3 years and also expand the hours of operation. So big win, big priority. This was like my number one end of session priority. And we're just waiting for the city council to give us a home rule now. This news is hot off the presses, so you'll probably see it in the papers tomorrow, not even tomorrow, because it just got sealed about an hour or so ago. So very happy about that. That's a big win. That's gonna make a big difference for a lot of people, especially as this is on pace to be the most dangerous year for traffic fatalities since Vision Zero started. I think we're year to date, 44% increase in injuries and fatalities this year alone, which is terrible. Other than that, I know that the news this week has really taught us all how to be expert map readers. It's like I'm thinking about that scene from Arrested Development where Buster's trying to like read the map on the boat, like is the brown the water or the land, right? Trying to figure out what's what. A lot of confusion, a lot of mayhem. We'll see what the final maps that are approved tomorrow are going to be. From my perspective, the neighborhood that I live in was split into 3 different districts by the special master, which is very frustrating. But nevertheless, depending on what the special master or the judge certifies tomorrow, I intend to run in the district that I live in, which, according to right now, would also include the heart of the 52nd. So I know that we're going to have another meeting next week to talk about that. And so I'll come back to you more about that, so I won't get into the politics of it. And I'll just leave it there. This is meant to be brief. Just wanted to say hello. And if you want, I'm happy to take a question or two, but if not, I know you have a full agenda outside of me as well.
All right. Any questions from any folks in the room or on Zoom?
Or compliments. I love compliments.
Doing great. All right. We'll let you get back to babysitting duty then. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you, guys. Take care. See you next week.
Okay. All right. Coming around. Okay. Are there any other elected officials on the Zoom? Just checking, hold on. Okay, I promised Joanne that I would let Susanna speak on any updates. Sorry, I caught her just as she was whispering. Susanna, do you want to give some updates on behalf of Joanne, who's, I believe, attending a wedding this evening?
Yeah.
Great, and I just want to say, Susanna and me and a whole bunch of INDers and all of the Brooklyn clubs came together and marched at the Bands Off rally on Saturday, and we had a great time. It was, depressing that we still have to march and carry these banners, but I think we're really emboldened, and we heard some stories from women of the movement who experienced their own abortions back in like the 50s and 60s in Alabama and all of these places, and it was really empowering to hear, what we're still fighting for today. So I wanted to thank Susanna for helping to organize all of the political clubs. We marched with Lambda Independent Democrats, who, by the way, their fundraiser is tomorrow night, and we are sponsoring that. You can learn more at indbrooklyn.org. It's on our calendar. So we marched with Lambda and CBID and Brooklyn Young Dems and NKD and BK Forge and all of the Brooklyn clubs. It was the club people marching along together. So just wanted to thank Susanna for being there with me. But now she's in her official capacity as Chief of Staff for Assemblywoman Simon.
Sure. Hi.
Oh yeah, we're waiting for Diana. I mean, we're waiting for Hannah Maria. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry, sidebar.
Hi. Hello, I'm Susanna, work for Assemblymember Joanne Simon. I think we all know each other and have seen each other a lot. Yeah, I guess so. Joanne is actually doing something pleasant tonight, which is great. We need some more of that. And I also want to just bring it back to Alyssa, she actually did the organizing of bringing the clubs together for the very big march to Stand with Roe over the weekend. And it was kind of fascinating that so many people from our neighboring clubs met up at a spot before a rally and actually stayed together a lot of the way. That was like one of our biggest feats. So I guess, on that note, I would just say, probably we're gonna have to talk about this again when this decision comes down to see how close it is to the leak decision. But I think, just to reiterate, right now, Roe is the law of the land. This is one of the reasons that in 2019, we passed the Reproductive Health Act. That was actually how I met Joanne. I was running the pro-choice caucus at the time for Senator Krueger, and she wrote a policy statement. That was actually how I met her. But so we do have those Roe protections codified in our state law. There is more that we can do. So there are some things that we have to do before the end of the session. I mean, the idea is we need to make access better, not just for people who might be coming here from out of other states, which has been increasing for the last 7 years, even before RHA. But so we need to make sure our access in New York is more accessible to New Yorkers here. There's a lot of access and equitable issues, I'm sure you all know. And then the main thing that we're kind of looking at is constitutional protections, which would require votes over a couple of period of sessions. So I will say it's very great that New York State has such a strong pro-choice caucus who's taking all of the measures seriously to really look at how do we make things better. And obviously, I think the governor allocated $35 million for services, and we're going to need more. We're going to need to have more than that for the long haul. So that's a huge issue. And then I think just the last thing I will say is you've probably seen, Joanne, in the news related to the mass shooting in Buffalo. So just want to share that we do have some resources, mostly from Assemblymember Crystal Peoples-Stokes, who represents that area, and the other senators who represent that area, that we're sharing. We can share it with IND in case you want to help the Buffalo community. Obviously 10 is a horrible mass shooting rooted in white supremacy and a racist attack. So you might have seen why this happened in New York, because this individual was flagged by his school and was interviewed and spent some time at a mental health facility, just about 24 hours. So we do have in New York State a bill that is meant to address a lot of these issues. It's called the Red Flag Bill, or the Extreme Risk Protection Order Bill, which Joanne sponsored in the Assembly, and Senator Kavanaugh and Senator Hoylman sponsored in the Senate. It is a very strong bill. There have been almost 1,000 temporary and final orders. So what we don't have is the counterfactual, which is, what do those several hundred, almost 1,000 orders do, and whose lives did they save? But I think this is a really important opportunity to look at, well, why wasn't a ERPO issued in this case? And like everything, it's important that the laws on the books have to be implemented. People have to understand them, and sometimes they need to be strengthened. So we've put some information on our website about the ERPO law. Joanne is really pushing for a public awareness campaign. So I think I'll take like 30 seconds to explain what it is, because I think that's probably very timely. If somebody, a school administrator, a family member, feels that somebody poses a serious risk of harm to themselves vis-a-vis suicide, or others vis-a-vis interpersonal gun violence, a potential mass shooting, they can petition the court for an extreme risk protection order. They do not need a lawyer. They can go to their county, their county court, and fill out the forms. We have the forms on our website. We will help people fill out the forms. They can get the fee waived if they cannot pay the fee. I think it just sounds like, I know there are a lot of lawyers in the room, but I think to a lot of lay people, it sounds confusing and hard and kind of scary. So they also can talk to the local police and ask the police to petition for the ERPO for them if they don't want to do it for a family member or somebody at school. So we really just want to make sure law enforcement is brought in, and we can prevent tragedies like this. So obviously it's been really shaking our country and our state to the core. And Joanne stood with a lot of the legislators, but especially the Black and the Puerto Rican caucus to join them and, to just talk about not just the gun violence implication, but the racist implications. So I will just add that it's the end of session and a lot of things are going on and we're pushing for a lot of different things, as you know, but I think, yeah, probably talking about Roe and ERPO is the most important. I don't know if anybody has any other questions.
For Susanna.
Okay.
Thank you for the update. Don't get too comfortable back there. We're calling you up to speak right away, if that's okay. Hi, welcome. So next up, we have our other Lieutenant Governor candidate for the night, Ana Maria Archila. Did I say that correctly? Ana Maria? Okay, awesome. She was most recently co-executive director for the Center for Popular Democracy and my favorite, a co-founder and co-executive director of Make the Road New York, which is an awesome immigrant advocacy organization. So nice to meet you. Sorry I didn't get to say hi before. I'm Melissa, president. Thank you for joining us tonight. So we have this hybrid situation. So if you step up here, you can speak to the Zoom and then the folks in the room.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi, everyone. So the format is I just speak
yeah,
for.
Tell us about yourself at like 5-minute introduction, and then we'll do some Q&A.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for the opportunity to meet with you all. I do not take for granted that we can gather in person anymore. And when we do, it feels very much like a sacred space. And that we can gather on Zoom is such a gift. Thank you for making the choice to be here today. My name is Ana Maria Archila, and I am a candidate for Lieutenant Governor. I came to the United States when I was 17 years old from Colombia. And it was in New York that I found a place that welcomed me as a young immigrant. It was in New York that I found the safety to love who I love, to be queer, to be proud, to feel safe and in community. It was in New York that I decided to raise my family. I have 2 children, 10 and 6 years old. But it was because in New York, I learned about the power that is unleashed when people organize to fight for one another, to fight for dignity in the workplace, to win access to college, to win better schools and better parks. I learned about the power of people organizing when I started organizing in a community of immigrant workers, day laborers in the North Shore of Staten Island, in a neighborhood called Port Richmond. Has anyone been there? Port Richmond. Okay. So Port Richmond is a beautiful neighborhood in the northern tip of the island, closer to New Jersey. And when I started in 2001, it was one of the communities that had the fastest growing Mexican communities in the city. And I was a young immigrant myself, and I had imagined, and I had wanted to work with young immigrants like myself. And I had imagined that I would be doing youth activism and arts and school-based programming. And what I found was actually a community of young immigrants who were living the lives of adults. Young people who were working 10 and 12-hour days in construction, in delis, in restaurants, who were getting paid less than the minimum wage because they were undocumented, and who were living in really dilapidated housing. So often renting beds because they did not have enough money to rent a room. And despite all these incredibly challenging circumstances in their daily lives, they would show up to this tiny office where I was teaching English late at night. And they would say, I am here. I'm ready to learn English. And what I learned by being in their presence and in that community is that people's dreams for themselves are a very powerful force. And these dreams stay alive, even in the most challenging of circumstances. The dreams for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. I believe that these are the same dreams that operate when we're trying to transform the world and build a better society. And so I spent the last 20 years of my life building spaces where immigrants, where working class families, where Black and brown New Yorkers and people from across the country find a community that sees them as fully human, that respects them as people with histories and with dreams, not just with the ability to work, and that most importantly allows them to be respected in our democracy, to be listened to be taken seriously. So I helped build and lead Make the Road New York, an organization that you might know of immigrant New Yorkers, one of the largest in the country. Thank you. I am glad that you like it. It is definitely my proudest accomplishment. And then after doing that work for 13 years, I went on to build a national organization that is a network of community organizations like Make the Road, but in 33 states and Puerto Rico. And after doing this work, that organization was called the Center for Popular Democracy. And so that's the work that I have done. That's what I have dedicated my adult life to. Even though most people know me as one of the women who confronted Jeff Flake in the elevator in the Capitol building during the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, to try to stop, that nomination from taking place, because I understood that with Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court, we would not only lose Roe and access to abortions and our reproductive freedoms, but probably a lot more. And so I am staring now at the reality of raising two children who might have fewer rights than I have enjoyed. And it is a thought that both sometimes feels overwhelming, but most of the time feels like a call to action to actually throw myself in the fight with even more vigor, with even more energy, to make sure that the seeds of optimism that have driven me are actually bearing fruit. And I have decided to run for lieutenant governor at the request of the Working Families Party, but really because I looked around in my community and saw a lot of fatigue, a lot of exhaustion at the chaos of the Trump era and COVID and Cuomo, and oh my God, it's a mess. And we had this super important election that felt like the outcome was predetermined before people got to vote. An election where maybe the votes wouldn't actually matter that much. And when that happens, the people who lose are the most marginalized communities, are immigrant communities, young people, Black and brown communities. And that feels unforgivable after the 2 years of the pandemic, where we have already lost so much of our health, so many loved ones, so much economic stability. It feels important to have a rigorous, exciting, inviting election where the issues that matter to most New Yorkers are at the center of the conversation. And so I have spent the last several weeks traveling across the state, listening to what people want Albany to do. And what people want Albany to do is to focus on addressing the affordability crisis, making sure that people have access to affordable housing, affordable childcare, affordable home care for their aging parents, for themselves, for their loved ones. New Yorkers want to make sure that we are in a state that is as rich as this one of the richest states in the country, that wealth is actually felt by most people. The fact is that New York is not delivering on that opportunity and that promise. Most people are stressed out between the pressures of jobs that don't pay enough and the cost of living that is too high and keeps going up, between the demands of work and the demands of care for families. And the fact is that Albany could really help people if it chose to focus on the priorities of regular New Yorkers. And we have a real problem in New York because the industries that dominate the agenda in Albany drown out the voices of most people. The governor's office, almost regardless of who the governor is, has always been the obstacle we had to overcome as an organizer when we were trying to raise the minimum wage, when we were trying to win access to college for immigrant students, when we were trying to improve protections for tenants. And the lieutenant governor was sort of like nowhere to be found, not that helpful, not that relevant. And it shouldn't be that way, because first of all, the voices of New Yorkers should not be drowned out, but also the lieutenant governor should do something that alleviates the pressures of people. And in New York, we have usually used the lieutenant governor just as a representative of the governor in ribbon cutting ceremonies, just as someone who rounds up the ticket of the governor, but then disappears into the background after election day. And I actually think that the lieutenant governor could be a real partner to New Yorkers who need their issues to be listened to and paid attention to in Albany. And we have a problem because the governor's office is encircled by a fortress of lobbyists and donors who really, really dominate the conversation. And in that structural reality, the voices of New Yorkers who live in rural communities, as well as the voices of New Yorkers who live in Brooklyn, get drowned out. There was a time when New York actually taxed the richest few. And during that time, we were able to build really important public infrastructure, like public parks, the SUNY University system, and Mishilama housing. We cannot address the needs of most New Yorkers if we are simply asking everybody else but the richest few to contribute. It is not fair, it is not right, and it is not necessary. I believe that we should invest in the things that keep people whole and make people safe. And I think that's possible if we have legislators which we have right now, who are champions of working families. And if we have a governor and a lieutenant governor who are listening to the voices and partnering with those legislators. I want to be a lieutenant governor that matters to people, not just one that cuts ribbons and participates in ceremonies. If I am elected, I will be the first Latina elected statewide, the first queer person elected statewide. And that matters. It's important to, break the ceilings, but what matters most is to make a difference for people. And I want to bring all the experience that I have built, that I have gained, all the lessons that I have learned from the last 20 years of organizing to the office of Lieutenant Governor to make a difference for New Yorkers all across the state. So thank you for the opportunity to make.
Thank you so much for sharing your background. I'll open it up for Q&A.
Let's be honest about it.
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant governors have about as much power as I'm being the president of Mongolia.
Mm-hmm.
Reality. My question is, if you become lieutenant governor, are you going to demand, and I mean this with a big D, demand a seat at the table? Because I'm getting fed up of seeing every lieutenant governor saying, oh, well, if I took a 6-month vacation in Puerto Rico, nobody would miss me. So I want to know, are you going to become an active lieutenant governor who's going to demand that the governor, I want a damn seat at the table. I want to be part of the policy. I don't want to be sitting there with these idiots who are, well, they remember used to call them the big three, right? The head of the assembly, the head of the state senate, and the governor, and everybody else couldn't give a damn.
Yep.
Because I remember when Patterson was lieutenant governor, his first comment was, after he was lieutenant governor, he said, I could take off for 6 months and no one know I exist. I want to make sure if you become lieutenant governor, you exist.
I share your frustration. I think it is unforgivable that New Yorkers bother to go out and elect someone who then does not matter. That is not fair. It is not right. It should not be that way. I believe that this office could be a real, could add real value. This is the fact. We're going to talk about facts. Most governors do not want to share power and the microphone with their lieutenant governors. They use their lieutenant governors as, representatives, but they, for the most part, sideline the lieutenant governor. That was the reality with Cuomo and Hochul, right? Like Cuomo sort of dispatched Governor Hochul when she was the lieutenant governor to all the corners of the state, but didn't actually bother to hear what she had to say about what she was hearing from New Yorkers all across the state. That was the reality when Governor Patterson was the governor and Dick Ravitch was the lieutenant governor. He was extremely frustrated about the fact that the governor wasn't actually interested in what he had to contribute, and Dick Ravitch had a lot of experience to contribute. So, okay, so in that reality, how do you use the power of the lieutenant governor? Instead of waiting for an assignment from the governor, you, instead of being a yes person to the governor, you become a yes person to the people across the state who need you to speak up for the issues that regular New Yorkers need addressed. The issues like housing affordability, like childcare affordability, like the opportunity to organize a union, the opportunity to be included in all the safety net for immigrant New Yorkers. There are so many things that need amplification. And there are but this is, I don't want people to become disenchanted. I want to say that we have made tremendous progress in New York in electing people into the state assembly and the state senate who are champions, who are really driving an agenda that makes a difference for people. And I think the lieutenant governor should partner with those folks, strategize with those folks, and with organizations like Make the Road and others to make sure that the agenda that gets drowned out has a presence in not just in the legislature, but also in the executive mansion. I don't want to be a representative of the governor, although I do want to be a partner to the governor, whoever the governor is, and work with the governor to address the needs of regular New Yorkers. And also when the governor is failing in that task, I want to stand up to the governor and say, we have to correct course. I think that is a more responsible way of being a lieutenant governor. It is a way that honors the courage and the contributions of people all across the state, and that actually honors the responsibility that voters grant you when they elect you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, that was going to be a question of mine. Was our club endorsed Capitoco back before first version of the maps, and
Yep.
back in
New York is
simpler
still the
times.
same map.
That's true. That's true. Simpler times, I suppose.
Yes.
So my question would be, how would you intend on working with her? But I think you covered that, which is
Yeah.
that's great.
And maybe I'll say these about Governor Hochul is one is, so as you know, I am running with Jumaane Williams in the primary. It is a partnership that represents a shared vision and a shared sort of analysis of the problems and the solutions that we need to advocate for. But I have a primary, and the governor's primary is independent. And if I were so lucky to win the primary, I would partner with whoever wins the primary of the governor to make sure that first we defeat the Republicans. We cannot risk Lee Zeldin or Giuliani #2 to become the governor. That would be an incredibly dangerous thing. And I would work very, very hard to build a partnership of collaboration with the governor. And I would work very, very hard to make sure that the reason that propelled me to run for office, which was to excite the communities that feel forgotten, but who actually we really need to show up, actually show up. And to make sure that we represent not just the broad coalition of the Democratic Party, but we're actually talking about the issues that speak to all New Yorkers up and down the state. My message has been a compelling message. I was able to win the Democratic Rural Conference straw poll simply by delivering to them what I am saying to you, which is that the lieutenant governor should matter, that we should address the needs of of working families. And I would want to partner with the governor, if the governor's Governor Hochul, on so many pieces of her platform. She has done an incredible expansion of the infrastructure of care for childcare and home care. I agree that those things are priorities. I would partner with her to make that happen and to make sure that that infrastructure is available to everyone, that we don't exclude immigrant children from childcare, that we don't exclude immigrant workers from healthcare. But I believe that there's so many opportunities to partner and so much good work to do from Albany. And I would want to be very much a useful contributor to that effort by partnering with the governor, but especially by making sure that I am clear who I represent, whose voices got me there, and what my responsibility is.
It's like a public advocate role.
Eso,
I like
that,
that, yeah.
exactly. You got it.
So last weekend, your running mate at speaking to the New York City Young Democrats said that upstate begins at the Bronx. Do you share that sentiment?
I mean, most people who live north of the Bronx do not agree with that sentiment, and I believe them. I feel like I listen to, people in Buffalo, they say West New York, and people in, Washington County prefer, with a lot more specificity to the place where they live. I I think that what really, really matters is to make sure that we are listening to people. I'll say that one of the most moving conversations I have had throughout the campaign was actually my screening for the Democratic Rural Conference. I came, I presented myself, said, this is what I understand about the priorities of rural communities. And they said, yep, you got it all right, but let me tell you what the real deal is. The reality is that people in rural counties are aging alone. We are aging alone because there are no jobs that pay well enough for our children to be able to afford a home. And so when we don't have broadband, which is crazy that in New York, so many rural communities don't have access to broadband. When we don't have broadband, we're not just missing the news and the movies, we are actually unable to communicate with our families. And when the power lines that were promised to us would be buried underground, but are still not buried underground, when the power lines fall after it rains, we are more vulnerable because we're having to fix that on our own. And that conversation made me think about the sort of the separation of displacement from the perspective of people who stay. I've always thought about gentrification from the perspective of people who go, or displacement from the perspective of people to go. But I was reminded that I have heard these stories from people who live in gentrifying neighborhoods in New York City, elders who say, I live in a Section 8 apartment or in a NYCHA building, but my children cannot stay because they cannot find a job that pays well enough to afford the rising cost of rent. And there is a way to connect the experiences of New Yorkers who live north of the Bronx, in West New York, in upstate, in the North Country, in the Hudson Valley. And there is a way to actually bridge the experiences and also address the very specific needs that people have. And we should do that.
So take it as a no.
Yeah.
And just for the record, you live in the 52nd Assembly District, is that correct?
52nd Assembly District.
You
Yes,
live
yes,
here
yes, yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you're-
Did the numbers change? No. Yes,
that's great.
I do.
Very cool.
Mhm. I was, a lot of articles describe me as a Queens activist because I actually lived in Queens up until last year and did a lot of my work in Queens. But I recently joined you all in the beautiful borough of the People's Republic of Brooklyn. Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions? Are there any questions on the Zoom? Awesome. This was really wonderful to hear from you. I'm really
Thank you.
inspired by your story. It's
Thank you so
good
much.
luck. So, yeah,
Thank you for the
we'll be
invitation.
endorsing, next week in this race. So
Amazing.
we'll be in touch
Okay.
with you.
I
Thank you
appreciate the
so much.
opportunity to meet you all. Thank you so much.
And also, you're welcome to join our club, indbrooklyn.org. Only $35 to join, and you get a hat. Okay, awesome. Let's see. Do we have any other elected officials that have joined us on the Zoom? No? Okay. Oh, Judge Delaney Esther Paul, welcome. I see you over there. Great. So we have a couple of minutes, and we have a special guest, Senator Brad Hoylman. Do you want to just introduce yourself? I know you'll probably come back next week to speak to us, but come on over and say hi. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. State Senator Brad Hoylman, and Andrea, that was a wonderful presentation, really. Congratulations on your run. Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Hoylman, State Senator from it was the 27th. I don't even know what the hell it is these days. But I represent currently the area in Manhattan from Canal Street up to 72nd on the west side, and on the east side from 4th Street up to 56. But of course, the lines have changed considerably. And now I'm looking at a run for Congress in the 10th, the new New York 10th, which of course includes your district and where I live, Greenwich Village in Manhattan. But just to follow up on what Senator Ganaris was saying, I'm really very excited to learn a couple of things from his report. One, that his speed camera bill is moving forward. It's so important that it get authorized and that those hours be extended. That's something I've worked on with Senator Ganaris. I'm also working on legislation 2 called Sammy's Law, which you may have heard of, which would give home rule to New York City to set their own speed limits. We've been saying time and time again, why should the senator from Buffalo or Binghamton set the speed limit for the folks in Brooklyn? So we need to work on that. And the other thing Senator Ganaris mentioned, and I'll follow up on, is today we got word that the New York State Assembly is going to pass next week the Adult Survivors Act, which is huge, so huge for survivors of sexual abuse. 2 years ago, Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal and I passed the Child Victims Act, which allowed adult survivors of child sexual abuse 1 year retroactively to file claims against their abusers or the people who may had protected them. We extended that a year during COVID, and now we're going to extend this for adult survivors. So very excited about that. But the run up to the end of session can only be displaced by the run up to the elections. And so I'll be speaking to you next week about that. But thank you for the moment, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, awesome. And we're still under 2 hours, so I will take a liberty and remind folks of all of the great events that we have coming up. As you know, we endorsed Max Rose for Congress. We still have a weekly phone bank for him, but depending on what happens tomorrow, he's still a great guy. We love Max. So that phone bank is available, and those are Wednesday evenings. We also have a weekly phone bank for our district leader candidates, Seamus and Cheryl. And also Cheryl, as well as a few other members tonight, couldn't be here because she's having a really awesome fundraiser with Ruth Messenger tonight. So you can learn more about all the goings on in the 52nd Assembly District, District Leader campaign at 52AD.
TeamAD52.com.
Got that? We'll put it on
Links
Twitter.
to Our individual websites, our social media pages, kind of a link to volunteer and a link to donate. So.
Awesome. And the office opening on Sunday. And again, LID is having their annual awards gala tomorrow. You can get a ticket there. We are sponsors of that, and they've been great partners to us. Am I missing anything? Any new business? Oh, go ahead, Seamus.
Also, Wednesday is my birthday, and I'm having a fundraiser.
Yay. Great. The folks on the Zoom, Seamus's birthday is Wednesday, and he's having a fundraiser. I'm sure he'll drop a link in there as well. Awesome. Do I hear a motion? Or, okay, to close the meeting. So moved. All right. Well done. Thank you all for joining in person and Zoom. Really appreciate it. Have a good night, everyone.